There's a lot of talk about ChatGPT and artificial intelligence and what that means for the job market. Spoiler alert, it's going to be very disruptive. A lot of jobs will be replaced or reimagined as something quite a bit different. But there are several six-figure income jobs and career tracks that AI just won't be replacing anytime soon. In this video, I'm going to share just 3 of those tracks with you for you to consider as you think about your career in the long term. Folks, if you're new to the channel, my name is Richard Walls and I'm here to help you with career development and personal finance. So if either of those 2 topics are of interest to you, do make sure to subscribe down below and hit the notification bell so you get notified of when I post new content. So with that said, let's get started. Job number 1 is business to business sales, also known as B2B sales. Now I distinguish that from B2C, which is business to consumer, and that is a little bit more relegated these days to the online world. That is to say, if you have some kind of consumer-oriented product like a smartphone or some kind of consumer electronics, you're going to be selling to individual people. They're likely going to be, if not entirely, shopping online. And so that's where those people have to meet customers, and you don't need an entire sales force of people to do that. You just have an online shopping experience to reach those customers and transact. Now, B2B is someone at one company selling to another person at another company. And what they're selling are some kind of solution. It can be IT, it can be some kind of service, something that's meant to either make that other company more productive, save more time. For example, when Amazon Web Services sells storage capacity or cloud storage to Facebook or to Meta. The transaction starts with one or more people from each of those 2 companies, identifying a problem or a need that the customer has, and then identifying a solution that the seller presumably can offer to solve that problem and add value. Now, the reason AI won't be able to do this anytime soon is partly because of how complex some of these business and IT solutions can really be. Between what the customer has in terms of a business challenge or an IT challenge and what the solution seller can provide, there's a lot of complexity involved, and all that information isn't necessarily going to be online or available for the AI to go and scour that information and come up with some recommendation that's accurate from the get-go. Now, AI can actually augment the abilities for both the seller and the buyer to identify the problem, maybe come to a conclusion a little bit quicker than they otherwise would have. But the other key ingredient that's missing is the human element. There's a saying in sales that goes, people don't buy from companies, they buy from people. Specifically, they buy from people they know, like, and trust. Is a major company going to put full trust in the AI of another company to come with the right solution for whatever problem that they have? Especially when that solution costs a lot of money. This is a big purchase, a big investment for that company to make. Or maybe that solution ends up being the incorrect solution, or it's delivered or deployed in a poor way. Do you think the customer would rather talk to some AI bot, or would they rather connect with some human that perhaps is going to have the kind of urgency required to solve the problem in a timely manner? You can probably imagine yourself if you have some issue with a product, you just want to get a hold of a person that can help walk you through it. Now imagine that at a much bigger scale with a lot more money and stakes involved. I'm not saying AI will never get there, maybe somewhere in the distant future, but I would say in the near term, this is not something you have to worry about, and it's something that is still something a human can uniquely do. So if you're early in your career or even mid-career and you're looking to pivot into something that's a little bit more AI proof, sales is the way to go, especially tech sales, and I've got a partnership with a company called Course Careers. It's an online learning platform that's designed as an education to job pipeline for tech sales, as well as some other fields like IT support and digital marketing. Make sure to check the link in the description that I have below and also take a look at the promo code that I have for my audience for a discount on the program. Job number 2 is computer network architects. A network architect is responsible for the design and deployment of a network infrastructure solution for a company. And oftentimes they're also responsible for the maintenance of that system over the course of its life cycle. And simply put, there's not a whole lot AI can do here without human intervention or humans guiding it every step of the way. If I had to give an analogy, and I hope network architects and engineers don't give me a lot of flack for it, but I would say network architects are to corporate IT as plumbers and electricians are to homes or commercial buildings. You have to scope out the full needs of a company and their entire operations, and then you also have to identify and solve pretty nuanced and specific problems. So there's never really a one-size-fits-all solution. It's something that for, again, very large companies, it has to be very specifically designed for that one company with all these other little parts coming into play. The deployment of the hardware itself is on site. And that person has to be on site multiple times or for extended periods of time, depending on how complex the solution is. And when it comes to maintaining the infrastructure, that is to say, getting ahead of issues before they come up and then diagnosing the issue when problems do arise. Now, some of this can be done remotely, of course, but for whatever can't be done remotely, maybe there's some issue with the hardware itself, you may have to go on site to diagnose the problem and find a solution. Now, a good way to get on a path to a role like this is generally going to start with IT support. Now, course careers, what I mentioned earlier, is a great place to start. They have a course track there. And as you land your first job and you start getting some experience, I'd recommend you go about earning some credentials through CompTIA to make you more qualified as a network technician or architect. And I've got the links to those, of course, down in the description below. Job number 3 is electrical engineer. Now, this degree, if you got an electrical engineering degree, can be widely applicable to a lot of different fields, but I'm going to talk about it in the context of a technology company that builds hardware. Now, this is to contrast it a little bit with software companies where the need would be from a software engineer, which is not on this list. And granted, it's a list of 3, it's not that many, but I didn't put it on this list. I see that though as being a little bit more easily replaced by AI. The idea being what could have been done with a team of software engineers or programmers and developers, and I know I'm lumping them into one category. I know there are distinctions. For all intents and purposes, what could have been done by a team of those people can now be done by fewer people with AI support. But because a large part of what an electrical engineer might be doing involves being hands-on with a product, specifically a physical product or some kind of hardware, this career track is quite a bit more AI proof. In the context of a technology company, the electrical engineer would be involved at various steps along the development cycle of a product. And the scope of knowledge that they have to have can be fairly extensive. For example, when designing a laptop computer, an engineer would have to be quite familiar with a handful of different concepts. They have to understand power consumption and efficiency, thermodynamics to understand how heat dissipates within the system based on how the internal components are organized, which, by the way, there are engineers that are specific to the field of thermodynamics, so you may even have specialized engineers in that section of the product development. They'd have to understand the circuitry on the board and how to orient that in a way that maximizes the performance of the system and the efficiency. And all of this culminates in the design of the product itself that is going to generate some appeal in the market, enough so that customers would actually buy it. Now, as I mentioned, there are other specialized fields of engineering that aid in the development of this kind of product. I would argue that electrical engineering is probably a little bit more widely applicable, not just to tech, but to many other fields. Now, unlike the last 2 jobs that I mentioned, this one tends to require a formal university degree or an associate's degree at minimum. So if you're looking to do a career switch, this one has a bit higher a barrier of entry, but certainly not impossible if you are truly interested in this field. So these are just 3 career tracks that I thought of. There are quite a handful of other ones. The common theme being if the job involves one of 3 things: a highly complex business or IT problem or solution, people relationships, and hands-on work. If you find any role that meets those criteria, you're probably gonna do okay in the long term when AI does become more ubiquitous in the job market. Folks, let me know down in the comments below if you agree or disagree with some of the jobs that I mentioned here, or if you think there are other jobs that are fairly safe from AI. Do let me know as well. In either case, if you're thinking long-term about your career, you'll definitely want to check out these two other videos where I go into a little bit more detail about sales as a career, as well as one of the best online learning platforms to launch a new career. With that said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you around.